Welcome everybody to this masterclass with Andy Serkis. My name is Jeannie Brenner and I'll lead you through this hour. I will start off with a couple of questions and then we'll open up for your questions. So I would like to start with, did you find the story and then decide to direct it, or did you decide to direct your first movie and then find the story?
The way I came about directing this film was a very personal route, because the subject matter, the people that it's about are very close to me. Jonathan Cavendish, who, have you just all watched the movie, by the way? You've just all watched the movie, right? That's good. So at least I know what I'm talking about. Okay, so Jonathan Cavendish is my producing partner. We set up a company about 6 or 7 years ago called the Imaginarium, which is a performance capture studio with a production house attached to it. So it was very much for furthering the art and craft of performance capture. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's the art of an actor playing a character that's a digital avatar, which is then manifested on screen. The likes of which are Gollum and King Kong and Apes movies and so on. So we set up this we set up this company to further the art and craft in the UK. But we also had a big slate of film projects. And Jonathan, this is his parents' life story, obviously, you've just seen it. Although this wasn't one that I was necessarily going to direct, I knew that it was part of our collection of films. Meanwhile, we were developing Animal Farm, which we were going to be shooting. We then started to hear that I was going to be directing Jungle Book. And then one night I read the script, and I'd also, Jonathan had seen a film that I'd made called Sex and Drugs and Rock and Roll about Ian Dury, who was a British punk rocker who had polio. And Jonathan had seen this film and started to tell me about his parents' life story. So I took the script home and I read it, and it was an extraordinary piece of writing, a very, very powerful, emotive piece of writing, but one that was charged with this incredible love story at the center of it. But what I really responded to about it was the fact that it was about pioneering, about the fact that these people were challenging a very old-fashioned, retrogressive attitude towards disability. And I found this incredibly powerful, that these people, at the point in the movie when Diana says, "How can I make life better for you?" and he says, "Get me out of hospital," they're taking this huge leap, like it's almost like asking to be put on the moon or asking to be placed on top of Mount Everest. The possibility of living outside of hospital at that time was none. So that is what charged me. And when I came in and met with Jonathan, I said, "Look, I really want to direct this now." And I know that I'm used to more visual effects driven movies and characters and extreme worlds and fantasy environments and so on, but I really feel connected to this. Also, my personal upbringing was with a mother who taught disabled children. So I grew up with children who had polio and other diseases like thalidomide and spina bifida and other paraplegics that were people that I kind of grew up with in a way. And then my sister was also a wheelchair bound with multiple sclerosis. So I had a very personal connection also to the story. But it was, it's then what happened kind of chronologically in terms of storytelling was we did some work on Breathe, and then we started to work on this very big production of Jungle Book, which I directed, and for Warner Brothers. So not the Disney one that's been out, the Jon Favreau one. This is a Warner Brothers one, a very dark kind of version of closer to Rudyard Kipling's book. A sort of PG-13, much more savage version of Jungle Book. No singing, no happy clappy dancing bears, no, nothing like that. So we'd shot that, and then there was in post-production, which is very long because we've used performance capture, that technology. All our actors played the animals. Christian Bale played Bagheera, and Kate Blanchett played Kaa the snake, and Benedict Cumberbatch plays Shere Khan the tiger. They're amazing performances. But during halfway through so we shot it all, and then in post-production, there was a hiatus. Because of the amount of time that it's going to take to make in post-production. And this window of opportunity came up to make Breathe, with Andrew Garfield and Claire's availability coming together. So we literally raised the money for this film in 7 weeks, and we shot the film in 7 weeks, and it was the fastest I think ever a film has ever been put together. But we managed to get a great team of people together because of the power of the story and because of the script. Actually, Bill had written this most incredible script.
I mean, you've been known as an actor who always breaks boundaries, but now for your first feature film, you decided to narrate in a rather classical way, and that surprised many people. So why did you decide to do that? Was that a way to put the story out there and not yourself, or?
Well, I think the subject is extraordinary as it is, and the framing of the film was all going to be about tone, about how we tonally would manage. I knew that I didn't want to make a very dark, dismal, grey, biopic, a sort of reconstruction of someone's hardship. That wasn't the case. We knew that we were making a very positive, uplifting, almost fairy tale-like opening to a movie, a film that had colour and vibrance and was witty and sophisticated in its humour. Because that's the essence of Robin and Diana, and their energy and their passion and this huge amount of love that is at the centre of the movie and is at the centre of Diana and Robin's real lives that then affected other people in such a positive way. That was how I approached the movie. That was very much tonally how I wanted to approach it. That it would be this, everything from the opening, from the colour, from the choice of palette, the costume designs, the design of the first chair. It was all to really celebrate, not in a kind of, not like as a tribute, but truly celebrate the lust for life that these two people had. And the power and the energy of facing such darkness with such humour, which then allowed them to grow and be fulfilled. And then once they were fulfilled, to allow and let their energy affect so many people who were in their position. So I suppose, getting back to your question, which is the classic sense of, I wanted to create a classic kind of film feel, so that you, the audience, would feel that you are being led into a story of a romantic British, very British, romantic, nostalgic love story, like A Brief Encounter was very much a model, or something like that, or even Ealing comedies, those, but something that felt like you felt you were at home, and the music was very uplifting at the beginning, and then gradually, of course, go on a visceral journey of a man who has control, and the world is at his feet. He's fallen in love with a beautiful woman. They're about to take over the world, go and live this extraordinary life. And of course, life doesn't happen like that. And that then it becomes about him losing control and then regaining control. And so the film does take several tonal shifts throughout the whole of the movie.
Was it always clear that you wouldn't take a part for yourself in it?
I mean, briefly flirted with the idea of playing. I think the only character I really would have played would have been Teddy Hall, and for a while that was a possibility. But I didn't want to. I wanted to. I'd had an experience of directing myself on Jungle Book, and so I really wanted on this one to just step back and just see the whole. And there was a lot to do in the 7 weeks. We shot for 4 weeks in the UK and 3 weeks in South Africa, and covering multitude of time changes and a child growing up, so lots of different versions of children. I knew that putting myself under the pressure of playing a role, I didn't particularly want to. I wanted, and also I wanted to work with this great ensemble of actors, and so and concentrate on helping them bring the story to life.
Talking about which, I mean, you managed what the countless villains didn't manage to do. You put Spider-Man in a wheelchair. So how did you? But could you talk a bit about your choice of actors? How did you find them?
Absolutely. I thought, yep, that's what I want to do. I want to put Spidey in a wheelchair. No, Andrew, Jonathan and I, obviously, to have someone play his parents was a huge deal. And to get the right actor who is so connected and athletic and brilliant and mercurial and versatile as Andrew, who could have an actor who can properly be able to play from the age of 26 through to into his late 40s, early 50s. So that was a really important part. Someone who could really transform. And Andrew is. One of the most incredibly open and collaborative actors. And his relationship with Claire too, and she's extraordinary too. And we to seek these people out, and that's why grabbing this window of opportunity with them was remarkable. That they were both free. They're both very different as actors, but the connection between them was extraordinary. And hopefully you will have experienced the fact that their chemistry on screen, I think, was absolutely mesmeric and very, very powerful because they're both very honest, open human beings and gave of themselves to each other in a very generous way and made a pact really at the beginning that they would. They kind of fell in love with each other in a sort of, as characters, and their energy was infectious between them. But Andrew, the way he sought the role, the way that he went into it was he didn't want to play Robin with any sentimentality, and that's the strength of the movie. I think is that it's not a sentimental film in any way, shape, or form. It has huge emotion in it, but the emotion is very buttoned down, and it requires a particular wit to bring that across. It's not. If in the wrong hands, this character could have been very mawkish and sentimental and seeking pity, and that's not our film. Our film is the opposite of that. It's about celebrating the wonder of with humour facing dark kind of situations with this brightness. So his sense of humour really played into it. His approach to Robin and taking Andrew's kind of athleticism away, like Robin's, and enabling him only to work with his head up was. And real footage of Robin, when you see him, he has this extraordinary mobile face that sort of was so expressive. It's like all of his energy had gone into his face. And if you think, he was stuck in a chair where his field of view was very restricted, and so his eyes were very attuned to trying to reach behind him almost. He could only see as far as anyone in his chair where they placed him would be. So it's true very much what Andrew's portrayal as Diana, the real Diana who still exists, said of him. It was like seeing Robin come back to life.
I mean, everybody calls you a first-time director now, but you're not exactly new to this. So you did second unit with the Hobbit films. So can you talk a little about the difference between the level of work and the scale of work?
Yeah, I mean, this is my directorial debut. This is the first film to come out that has my name on it as director. But it's true. I've before I became an actor, I studied visual art and trained to be a painter and graphic designer, and then I started working in theatres, painting, making sets and designing posters for theatre shows, and then this was while I was at college, and then and then I got asked to be in student productions, and so I gradually did that, and then by the end of my first year in college, I did this one play I played the lead role in this play, which just was this huge epiphany and changed the course of my career, and I decided then I wanted to be an actor. My parents completely disowned me at that point, and it was bad enough being an artist, but then being an actor, it was just like, there was terrible silence down the end of the telephone when I told them, I seem to remember. Anyway, I digress. I had always had a desire to tell stories pictorially, visually, and I'd started to make short films and work on video projects, and even way back. Then I started to write screenplays, and then started to make short films, and then Lord of the Rings happened, and then the whole world of this whole other world of visual effects opened up to me, and by then I'd had a feature film that I was working on that I was going to direct. Then Peter Jackson took over my life for about 7 years. With the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit, and when I went back to reprise the role of Gollum, and there was King Kong in between, and then when I went back to reprise Gollum in the Hobbit, he said, "Look, Andy, I don't know how you feel about this, but I'd love you to be the second unit director." So my role, so I went back to New Zealand thinking I was just going back to play Gollum for a few weeks in the first film, and I ended up, being back there for a year and a half, and we shot for 200 days on second unit as director, and it was like, I thought I was going to be making a small independent film for my first movie, and suddenly I was in front of, a crew of 150 people on the biggest film set in the world, directing 12 dwarves, goblins, elves, dragons, and so it was it was not the auteur movie that I had set out to make, but it was the greatest film education that one could possibly imagine. And then I came back from that, and we set up, Jonathan and I set up the Imaginarium, which is, I've explained, as this studio, with a view to when we set the Imaginarium up, it really was with a view to increasing the parameters of using performance capture, and that's sort of our mantra was really next generation storytelling. How are we going to receive stories in 10 or 20 years' time? And I'd already directed some video game projects, some performance capture for video games, and I had this ambition in my head to do the entire canon of Shakespeare's plays as video games, and as a way educationally of engaging a young audience, but also I thought, wow, God, that'd be pretty cool. So when I was writing down our plan for the Imaginarium, that was one of the things, and since then, over the course of the last 6 or 7 years, that's sort of what we've been doing. We worked individually on characters for other movies with other people as consultants, and for instance, we worked with Mark Ruffalo on when he's playing the Hulk. We worked with James Spader playing Ultron in the Avengers film. We worked on Godzilla. It's sort of helping other people to create digital characters to come to life. But it was really, what we realised was we were expanding the use of performance capture, not just in big blockbuster movies, but that we were able to now shoot performance capture for TV series, video games, as for virtual reality, which is now, of course, becoming a huge part of another way of storytelling, and mixed reality, which is even closer as well. But then we also started to work with theatre and put the first performance capture actors on stage and project in real time. We did a version of The Tempest, Shakespeare's The Tempest, at the Royal Shakespeare Company, and projecting that actor onto screens in real time as he shapeshifts into different characters. So that kind of breadth was really, has always been interesting to me, and seeing how all of these strands were coming together with performance capture at the middle of it. Was part of it was part of me, I suppose, understanding what I wanted to direct. And then Jungle Book came along, and then this, this is a traditional story, like you say, in many ways. But actually, it's Jungle Book's a traditional story. They're all brilliant stories, which are, you know, Lord of the Rings. They're all incredibly true stories in their world, and they're all incredibly. What's at the heart of all of this is emotion, and at the heart of any of the actors' performances in Breathe, or any of the actors' performances in Lord of the Rings or the Apes movies, are. It's emotion. Anyway, next question.
Did your parents ever manage to come to terms with your choice of career?
Oh yeah. Well, absolutely. Yes, they had no choice. They had no choice. Actually, they came to see me. My father, who was a doctor and had a proper job and built a hospital in Baghdad for all the people. You know, he co-founded a hospital in Baghdad. Came to see me in my first play, and I was playing the first play he saw, and I was playing this character in a play called Dog Boy. And Dog Boy was this homeless youth with very bad psychological problems who kills his dog and then becomes his dog and then breaks into this middle class household, and the play is about their response to how they deal with this homeless youth who thinks he's a dog. And I was completely naked, and that was the first play my father came to see me in. And he didn't speak to me for a long time afterwards.
So you just told us a lot from the beginning of your career, and your big break came 2001. So you already were a working actor before that. Did that help you with fame, with the experience you have? You go, I don't know.
I think many people think that my career started, playing Gollum, and it actually. No, I started acting, at the age of 21, and for years. So I didn't play Gollum till I was 31. I did a lot of theatre. I mean, I did about 60 plays or so, I think. And my first job was working in a local theatre and rehearsing a play during the day, performing another one at night, and playing. I did 14 plays back to back over the course of a year and a half. Playing lots of different characters, and part of that training was embodying different characters and totally immersing yourself in a character during the day and then becoming someone else completely at night. And that sense of a transformation I found extraordinary and powerful. But also I was very lucky because the first theatre job I had, I was working with a director who really understood the nature of storytelling and acting with purpose. So I think many actors don't know why they act. I think many actors are drawn to it but don't know why it is they do what they do. And I was very lucky to be part of a company that knew what it wanted to do, which was to change society, basically. It was a very political theatre. And and I've carried that all the way through my career in everything that I've done, really. That what we do is not just actors, but artists in general, and filmmakers, musicians. We're all doing the same thing, which is to ask our audiences to think in a different perspective by immersing themselves in a world or a character or a piece of music or whatever it is. But the job of the actor from working with this director, it was nothing to do with self-glorification. It was to do with going out, researching, discovering information, building that into your character, and then sharing it with an audience in a way that perhaps they may not have thought about things before. And that has really been the driving force of most of the things that I've been. You can't do it all the time. Sometimes it's, we're working with subject matter that doesn't allow it. But even to a tiny degree, you try and, I always try and do that. So when I talk to young actors now, and I always ask them the question why you want to do it, because you have to know why, because otherwise it just becomes you're lost for me, I think you'd be lost in a sort of ever decreasing circle of it being about yourself,
So the nature of acting, the nature of storytelling, is that something you can learn or teach?
Yeah, yes, of course. If you're with great practitioners, if you're with brilliant theatre directors who have an ambition for a play that they're making to say something about the human condition, or filmmakers who do the same, and going back to apes, here's an example. This is a big blockbuster franchise, which one might think is a sort of superficial kind of popcorn movie, but in actual fact, I consider that one of those movies, some of the greatest statements that can be made to a broad audience. It's a very privileged position to be involved in a franchise that big, that is going to reach millions of people across the world, and actually have something to say about the human condition that is profound and affecting and emotional and connective. So that's why I think the other thing about performance capture is that, and its ability to allow actors to play absolutely anything, is why I've been drawn to it all these years, because it's a very egalitarian actor's tool, because it doesn't matter what. It's the end of typecasting. You're not just picked for what you look like, or no matter how tall or short you are, how big or small, or what colour your skin is, what sex you are, you can play anything, and that philosophically, from an acting point of view, is pretty remarkable. And that's why for the last 17 years I've embraced and loved the characters that I've played, even knowing that people do not see my face on screen. I know that the gift that's given me as an actor, to be able to completely transform, going back to those early theatre days, completely transform to the nth degree, and create characters that can really connect with an audience is what is what it gives you. It's incredible.
I would like to open this up for your questions now, please. If you have a question, please raise your hand. And I see there's a hand over there, and then over there. And somebody should bring you a mic.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I wrote it down because I would freak out. I'm probably the biggest fan in this room, so I'm freaking right now. Sorry. I watch every making of and behind the scenes video about performance capture for how long I can remember. So wink nut and everything. But when I want to work in motion capture industry in the future, but it seems a little bit locked to me as a director without a project, or if I'm not a client. Because Beta Digital and everyone is looking for technical stuff and technical crew. So how can enthusiast and director at the same time, what is the starting point? Where should he start? Because if I would ask someone from the crew, there is motion editor, technical writer, mock-up assistant director. I don't know who should I ask, really.
So are you talking about looking for advice in terms of how to become part of this as a director or an actor?
Yeah, as a director.
As a director. And are you talking about, there are, in Europe now, there increasingly are performance capture or motion capture courses that you can go on in universities and colleges. There are a number in the UK, and I can tell you about those afterwards. Well, there's one in Bournemouth, there's Portsmouth, there's a whole bunch that you can, and this is incredible. These have all grown over the last few years. Performance capture, it came out of the medical industry. It was actually used for analysing gait movement after injury, so markers would be placed on joints if someone had broken their ankle or their knee or something, and it was to analyse movement to make sure that the body was repairing in the right way. Then it became used in early video games for capturing sportsmen or martial artists, and then it came into the film industry. But anyway, to your point, I think there are definitely courses that you can attend, and there are so many different aspects to performance capture, and using the great thing about it is that you can use virtual cameras, which is you can see the actors. So you're looking at the actors in a room in their suit, in their motion capture suits with dots all over them, in an empty room. But then when you look into the monitor, you can see an entirely rendered in video game engine world with the actors moving around as their characters. And so as a director, it's a fantastic tool. So you should investigate working, maybe, or finding courses in a college.
Okay, one more short question. Sorry.
Sorry, I just thought it was you and me in the room for a minute.
Imaginarium Studios made a course at NFTS once, I think, for performance capture. There was one course from Imaginarium Studio at NFTS in Beaconsfield.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
There will be some else.
There are other. Yes, there will be. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We're planning to have people to come in and watch. Yeah.
The gentleman in the back was the very first hand that went up before.
Hi, Andy. It's a rather simple question. I wondered if you can see yourself going back to theatre at some point in the future, on stage. I mean.
Yeah, I actually miss it, but I've gone on this. I really do miss it, and I want to go back. And the last play I did was Othello, and I played Iago in Othello in 2002. And I haven't been on stage since. And there comes a point, and as I say, my whole career started off in theatre. I did many plays. There does come a point where you think, God, can I do it? Can I actually do it? Go back, it's 15 years ago. But I really hope to at some point. It's just finding the right material. So yes, I would love to.
Thank you. You are today considered like the motion capture actor. I was wondering, do you think in your career there was working in the theatre prepared you for that? Did you acquire special skills for that? Was it, to be a bit flippant, was it just pure luck? Or are there some special skills you think you need to be a motion capture actor?
Absolutely not. You need no skill whatsoever. I've just been very lucky. And that's the greatest. The greatest mystery about performance capture is there is no mystery. The thing is, it's acting. Acting is acting, and it really, for me, I've never drawn a distinction when I approach a role. If it's on screen in a more traditional sense, in costume and makeup, or whether I'm playing a performance-captured role, the actual process of acting is exactly the same. You're building a character. You're embodying that role physically, mentally, psychologically, emotionally, and it doesn't matter whether what it is. You go through those same processes. Then you work with the director on set or on stage. And you're directed by the director, and you're acting with other actors, and so there is absolutely no difference. Obviously, if you're playing a character which is a creature, and you have to do a lot of research, you have to be able. If I'm playing an ape, then I go to in my case, I went to Rwanda to study mountain gorillas for King Kong. But or you can go to a zoo, or you watch footage of apes. But it gets to a point where you're not just mimicking the physicality of an ape. You're going, who is this ape? What does this ape represent? Who is it? What's the personality? Is he, what's his back history? Is he, they're 97% genetically the same as us. How much can I use of my own personality to become this character? So on and so forth. And I've had a lot of actors, and even the great actors who like I say, work with on Jungle Book, who said, what's the secret? And I go, there is no secret. It's you're playing a character. You're using your imagination to transform yourself into another being. It just happens to be a panther, So yes, study the physicality of a panther, study everything about that. But it's who is that panther? It's and it's Christian Bale. When you see Jungle Book, you will see Christian Bale as a panther, and the way that we designed those animals. Say if you take a real panther over here on the spectrum, and then you've got Christian Bale over here, we've morphed. We literally did a series of morphs facially all the way across, and then you look along and you can see a sweet spot right in the middle where you see both the face of a panther and the face of Christian Bale, and that is kind of what it's about. It's the actor is the driver and the author of the role, so there's no secret.
Hello, sir. Nice to see you. It's an honor. I have a quick question. Would it be possible to speak to Gollum for a really, really tiny bit?
Well, you know, Precious, I said I wasn't going to do this today. I know, but you did, my love, you did. Oh, I don't want to do it anymore. Why not? You're here because of me.
Thank you, sir.
I've got to say something. Gollum has been a huge part of my life, and you know, and at times I have to kind of keep him in a box because whenever I get interviewed now, people ask me to do Gollum, and it's got to the point where whatever I'm talking about, people ask me to do Gollum. You know, and so I have this terrible conflict of wanting to do it for people because I know it gives them pleasure, but actually thinking, you know, it's like. It's Gollum is my picture of Dorian Gray. I'm going to grow to look more like him. As I get older, I'm going to look more like him, and I won't be able to escape him then, you know. But it's a sort of a, you know, you're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place because even when I'm discussing other serious things or, you know, films like Breathe, it's just like, oh yeah, we're talking this great, you know, this film about disability, and oh, can you do Gollum for me, you know? So it's a curious one.
Hi, I'm Caitlin, and I have a question about the emotion. I think it's a nice segue, actually, from Gollum to emotion in film. But at the heart, you said is emotion, and I'm wondering about VR and MR. If you were to create a Shakespearean story, would you have your user like democratize experience and disappear into a character to keep the integrity of the storytelling, or would it be a choose your own adventure where the user would sort of get bells and whistles and get to choose the next steps? How much on the continuum would you have the user interaction?
Well, I think there's multi possibilities for that, you know, and there is, you know, there are certain versions. I mean, a version would be, you know, using virtual reality would be, and this is a model that we're starting to employ, working with a theatre company, rehearsing the play. They go through the experience of performing that play. They know their characters inside out. You know, they perform it every night for a run of a play. Then they come to the Imaginarium. We then invite the director down. The director kind of restages the play in a motion capture environment. We create the world using the same designs from the play, the costume designs, the world that's designed, the whole conceit of the play. He then re-choreographs it in 360, so that some of the action is taking place over there, some over there, some there, and you are drawn into, you know, orally, or you're led, you're directed by some way to follow the action. You can then, there are two options. You know, you can then, for instance, if it's A Midsummer Night's Dream, for instance, you know, you can be 1 minute, you can be one of the lovers and experience the play. You can basically click on a button and choose to be and see the world from that character's point of view, or from Puck, the sprite. You know, you can see the world from his point of view. So, and the entire play would then function in that way. So the narrative would stay the same, but you would experience it from different points of view. The other thing is you have more of a multi-choice sort of player. You know, you can make choices by clicking on a button, and it opens up another avenue, and still be immersed in it and still be a part of it.
There's a balance. Thank you. That's fantastic.
Sure.
Thank you. You just said, and we all just experienced, that no matter what you do, Gollum will be the most important thing in your career.
I didn't say that.
but seems like. And I wanted to ask why. I mean, if you want to be real honest, it's because what you did as an actor and as you were so great as an actor, or because it was, you know, Lord of the Rings and Peter Jackson and the good visual effects and all this kind of stuff. So which one is most important in the...
Sorry, I'm not sorry. I don't fully understand the question. Are you saying what's more important, the fact that it was part of such a great...
What made Gollum so big a deal?
Oh, what made him so...
Yeah, you made it, or all the other factors?
Well... It's definitely a marriage of skills. It's a marriage of skills, and all of the characters I've played are a marriage of skills. You couldn't have one without the other. But what I'm getting at is about authorship of the role. Who plays the part? You know, for years people have said, you did the voice of Gollum, and I go, that's absolutely not right. That's absolutely wrong in every single respect, because it's not just about doing a voice for a character that is created by a committee of animators later on down the line. This is about true owning the role, authoring the role. I wouldn't have been doing it for the last 17 years if I didn't believe this thoroughly, that every single digital character that I played, I know comes from the choices that I've made as an actor that affects the audience emotionally. And the job of the visual effects team is to honour that performance and make sure that that performance reads on a completely different character, on the physiognomy of something that, you know, they have to retarget that performance. It's like a digital mask, but they are changing, you know, with Caesar in Planet of the Apes, for instance. You know, my face is similar to an ape, but it's not entirely like Caesar's. So they have to do a lot of work in translating that performance. But every single choice as an actor, every single beat of every single scene, I've been on set playing that role with the director directing me, Gollum with Peter, you know, and so it is the craft of the actor that connects with the audience. The placing that character, the manifesting of that character in the world of the film is an entirely visual effects job, and the animators are in a position with this kind of work, not with animated films, because in animated films they create the characters by, you know, there's a team of animators. So the difference between animation and live action performance capture is with animation, you go into a voice booth as an actor, you go in and you do a couple of hours of work, and they film you for a couple of hours, and then you go away for months and months and months. Meanwhile, then your voice is then used by a whole team of animators while they sit and they work on their individual shots that they're given to work on, and they will look into a mirror and they will act out what they think the role is, which is, you know, some of them are great actors, and you have to be a good actor to be an animator, and they'll look into the mirror and they'll try and you know, emote what they think the character is doing, and so you have 150 animators working on the show, so you kind of get 150 interpretations of the character. Whereas performance capture, you have one actor who is emotionally the guardian of the role, and you play that character from day one through the whole shoot, from page 1 to 120 of the script. So it's a completely different approach. So getting back to your point, you know, it is a marriage. Yes, of course it is, because I don't look like King Kong, but I act King Kong, and I become King Kong, and I emote as King Kong, and I connect with my other actors as King Kong, and that's what the actor does.
So would you say that the design of a performance capture character is more or less a very elaborate costume?
Look, without the visual effects teams being, you know, without being in any way detrimental to what they do, because their work's incredible. But it is like digital makeup. It is like it's like in the 1968 version of Planet of the Apes, Roddy McDowall wore very thick layers of prosthetic makeup to you know. And people understand that. People think, oh, that's an actor wearing makeup. If John Hurt plays the Elephant Man in a movie, oh, that's an actor wearing makeup. Even though it's completely disguised, and a whole team of artists have made that, you see it as an actor's performance. If Gary Oldman plays Winston Churchill, there's an amazing prosthetic that he's wearing, but you understand that as an actor's performance. If an actor wears a performance capture suit, plays the role, and then someone does digital makeup afterwards, people go, well, that's not acting. That's the point. That is what I and lots of other actors who do what I do kind of have been living with for quite a few years, and that, so it's all about education. It's all about people understanding what it is that we do.
Hello. I was wondering if you have concrete plans for future projects, and what would be your in the future, your most exciting project that you would still want to do, if you could do anything?
Wow, there are so many. I've got so many projects in my head that it's about to explode. And one of the ones that we are involved, that Jonathan, I always go like this when I say Jonathan, because he's practically nearly always by my side, and Jonathan and I are planning on making Animal Farm, George Orwell's Animal Farm. So we've been evolving that at our studio at the Imaginarium for some time, and at some point, you know, fairly soon we'll start getting into proper pre-production on that. What else? I can't give too many of them away because they haven't been announced. But there's a particular project, without giving too much away, which I actually really want to shoot in Switzerland, and it's actually perhaps the film I want to make most. And we're in talks with Silver Reel, who are based here, Claudia Blumhuber, to make this film. And I'm not going to tell you the title or anything about it, other than that it's a film which hopefully we will shoot in Switzerland. And that is the film I want to make more than anything.
Short back. Hi. Other direction. Short back to brief and ask about the cinematography. You did something interesting. You faced the camera directly before Andrew Garfield and freezed the picture. So could you tell me something about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a very strong idea of how I wanted to frame Breathe, and was immensely lucky to have Bob Richardson come on board, because he is a genius and very sensitive DOP, and he's also very respectful of a director, but he's also very strong-willed. So there was a really great kind of collaboration and an artistic sort of sparring match we had between us, and I truly hope I can work with him again, because he understands drama on such a profound level, and he is a true artist. And so the framing of the film was we wanted to bring great scale to the movie, and given that it's a hospital-based drama or an intimate domestic drama at heart, we wanted to, wherever we could, we wanted to bring scale to the movie. And the way that Bob, he operates the camera as well. He uses an old school kind of crane where he rides the crane. He sits on a crane and is right in with where the performance is. And so there are three kind of aspects to the way we shot Breathe. There was the scale and the format, therefore, that we chose was good for scale, but it was also good for Robin's point of view, because as I was sort of describing earlier. You know, Robin had a fixed point of view at times, and so we had a widescreen 2:7:6 ratio format, which because there was a lot of scenes of Robin in bed, you know, again it all lent itself to this. But one of the you know, so there was a lot of landscape, but the greatest landscape really was this landscape of Andrew's face, and holding that still, or slightly pushing in on that, and allowing Andrew to do, and Andrew's extraordinary acting to unfold. Thematically we use that at various points in the movie. The first point being where he's struggling to breathe when the respirator breaks down. Oh no, actually before then, even in the hospital where you first see him and it's just his isolation really. And then when he's trying to breathe when the respirator breaks down when he goes home, and then at several other points when we're trying to viscerally get inside his head. And the moment at the end where he calls the doctor and says, "Today's the day." So I really felt. I mean, Andrew is such an honest actor. You can literally leave the camera running on him. We could have shot everything like that because he's so interesting, and his choices were always so interesting. But it was so that in the simplicity of looking into his eyes, you could read everything about his emotions, and to linger on that and let the audience be drawn in as the camera pushes in. It really does. I think it really has a quite powerful effect of sucking you into his world.
So we have time for one last question.
Hi, congratulations for the film. I hear it's incredible. For someone who wants to work in film industry, what kind of qualities do you need in terms of not just like passion, but what do you need to succeed?
Wow, that's quite a big question. I think you have to work out what part of the film industry you want to be part of. What excites you? Where do you see yourself?
Producing.
Producing. So I think you have to be on the hunt every single second of every single day for the greatest story that could ever be told. And when you find that story, then you have to be able to work 24 hours a day to try and bring that. It's got to be something that hits you so hard that you will lose sleep over it, that you will go to the darkest place imaginable, that you will face failure and rejection, and it's what you're prepared to do. And also you've got to have incredible stamina. You've got to realize that this dream that you have right now has got to excite you in 7 years' time when you eventually get to make it. So it's about having that. It is about passion, and it's kind of only about that really. And being in tune with the world. If you're a producer, you have to be in tune with the world that you're making the film in, both in the financial sense, but in terms of the human sense. What is the world that you're making this film for?
Great, thank you.
I'm sorry, we're running out of time. We have to wrap this up now, I'm afraid. Thank you very, very much for coming.
Thank you very much.